This is not a drill, this is not a drill. Adele just recommended a book. And quite frankly, if it's good enough for Adele, it's good enough for me. The review in question is wild. So Adele says, if you're ready, this book will shake your brain and make your soul scream. I am so ready for myself after reading this book. It's as if I just flew into my body for the very first time. Literally me watching Adele perform Someone Like You at the Brit Awards 2011. Anyone who has any kind of capacity to truly let go and give in to yourself with any kind of desire to hold on for dear life, do it. Read it. Live it. Practice it. I'm getting all fired up! Where do we hire Adele to be our personal motivational speakers? We are a lot, but we are meant to be a lot. A good life is a hard life. Read this book and have a highlighter on hand to make notes because you'll want to refer back to it, trust me. I never knew that I'm solely responsible for my own joy, happiness, and freedom. Who knew that our own liberation liberates those around us? Because I didn't. I thought we were meant to be stressed and disheveled, confused, and selfless like a Disney character. Why is Adele the most relatable person on the whole planet? Pro-bloody found. You're an absolute Don, Glennon. Normalize referring to authors as an absolute Don. That, my friends, that is literary criticism. I'm out of a job. How will I ever top that review? If someone reviewed my book like that, I think I'd sob. I'd simply retire because you're never gonna top that. Anyway, so the book is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Isn't that the name of Draco Malfoy's sidekicks? Draco Malfoy sidekicks. Oh, Crabbe and Goyle. Sorry, Glennon Doyle. Okay, brilliant start. Anyway, I went to my local bookstore and I managed to find the book, and it actually has Adele's review right here on the back, which, to be honest, I'm not surprised by, because if Adele reviewed my book like that, I'd have it tattooed on my scalp. And as if that wasn't enough, it's also been very highly praised by Emma Watson, Anne Hathaway, Camila Cabello, Chelsea Handler, Nicole Richie, Kerry Washington, and Oprah Winfrey, and Reese Witherspoon. So the review section of this book looks like the Met Gala lineup, and so I'm intrigued. But before we Tom Daly dive into that one, I'm very excited to let you know that today's video is brought to you by Surfshark. And this is something I use every single day. It's a VPN, which stands for Virtual Private Network. That's right, we are untaming my inner tech bro. And the reason this is great is because firstly, Surfshark encrypts the data that you are putting onto the internet. Meaning if, like me, you like to go and work in coffee shops and libraries and use public Wi-Fi, your data is protected from those nasty little hackers. And secondly, Surfshark allows you to change your virtual location. Meaning if there's a show that isn't available on, let's say, your country's version of Netflix, you can just virtually change your location and you can watch it much cheaper than a plane ticket. So if you would like to try out Surfshark for yourself, I've teamed up with Surfshark for the deal of the frickin' century, because by using the code jackedwards you can get 83% off and 4 months free. What? I'm like the Oprah Winfrey of VPNs. Adele gave you 19, 21, 25 and 30. I'm giving you 83. Don't say I don't treat you. Go use the code at the link in my description, kind of down here in the crotch sort of region. And also remember that Surfshark has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so your money is safe and protected. Truly, all they do is give. So thank you, Surfshark, for sponsoring this video, and let's get reading. So I just got back from a coffee shop because I went there to read the first 100 pages of this book. And POV, right? Imagine you're me. I'm reading my book and I turn the page just as the waiter comes over. I order my coffee in my very broken French. Then you turn back to your book and you realize that you've had it open on this page, blowjobs. So, I'm never showing my face in that cafe ever again. Thanks, Glennon. Thank you. Thanks for that. Thank you. But aside from that mishap, I'm kind of liking the tone of this book so far. It's easy to read, it's accessible, each chapter is about 3 pages, so it's pretty fast paced. And honestly, I find self-help books that are broken up into smaller chunks a lot more palatable. What I'm noticing is that our pal Glennon has a very specific way of writing and a very specific way of utilizing language. So she'll pick up on a very specific idea or term or word and then extrapolate that and turn it into a metaphor. That's giving me war flashbacks to The Fault in Our Stars. It's a metaphor. For instance, the book's title, Untamed, comes from her seeing an animal which has been tamed in a zoo and feeling this discomfort at the fact that it's living outside of its natural habitat, it isn't in the wild, which then turns into a discussion about how humans need to let out their inner wild and be released from their cages. And I do think that this way of explaining your ideas is something that helps take authors who write non-fiction, self-help kind of books and have these deep sort of psychological observations. It helps take them into the mainstream. It helps ordinary people understand the kind of elevated, lofty ideas that they have had. Matt Haig really does this as well when he's talking about mental health. He'll use a lot of metaphors of like the weather, of different things in the natural world which we often observe. And it's like, okay, understand this phenomenon in that scenario, in that context, and now understand that's going on inside your brain too, and that's how human beings behave as well. And it can be incredibly effective, and so far I think it has been in here, but it's a slippery slope. It's a very thin tightrope where it can border on being a little bit cringeworthy, and also you run the risk of grotesquely oversimplifying very, very complex ideas and taking something that is so massive and nuanced and trying to squeeze it into a little pigeonhole. So the metaphor approach is something you have to be really, really careful with, and it doesn't work 100% of the time, but so far so good. So that's the first 100 pages down, and as I'm filming this, Adele has not yet dropped the emotional nuclear bomb that is her new album. And if this book did really change Adele's mindset to the extreme levels that she suggests it has, then my guess is that the lyrics on 30 might be quite heavily influenced by the core idea of this book. I think we've already started to see this really on Easy on Me, which is essentially about the idea of putting yourself first, no matter how difficult the decisions you have to make are to facilitate that. She talks about wanting to feel the world around me. I'm not gonna sing it to spare your eardrums, but that is what this book is about too. Untamed is part memoir, part self-help, and it's basically about Glennon Doyle's experience of her husband cheating on her because these hoes ain't loyal. She decides to stay with him for the sake of their 3 kids, but then eventually realizes that she's living a life of unhappiness. Eventually meets a woman who she realizes she might actually just be a bit in love with, and she makes hard decisions which she knows are necessary for long-term happiness. The other thing is that Glennon Doyle is deeply religious, and she talks about having this inner knowing inside you, but I liked the way that she spoke about it because it's very non-preachy. At one point, her new wife sort of mocks her. She's like, oh, Glennon's talking to herself again. And she says, yeah, maybe. If what I found in the deep is just myself, if what I've learned is not how to communicate with God, but how to communicate with myself, and if for the rest of my life, no matter how lost I get, I know exactly where and how to find myself again, well then, that is certainly enough of a miracle for me. And I thought that was great, because as someone who doesn't really consider myself religious, I liked that attitude of we're all just trying to make sense of this ridiculous, crazy world by whatever means necessary. And if that is religion for you, then great. I like that so far this book has kind of said, it doesn't matter how you find the path, as long as you find it. And I think that's a very positive message. So I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this. And I'm also very much looking forward to hearing 30 drop at midnight. So I'll see you tomorrow. Divorce, babes, divorce. Hello. It's me. Couldn't resist. I mean, truly, what did you expect? Okay, I finished the book and I listened to the album and holy guacamole. Grammys, hello? Yeah, it's her again. She did it again, my friends. She never misses. Firstly, I would say I can see the parallels between the album and this book. My Little Love especially, which broke me, by the way. It's a song about explaining divorce to your kids, and that's a huge section of this book. In the song I Drink Wine, she talks about the sacrifices that, well, typically women have to make, but she says, is anyone actually satisfied? Like, is it actually worth it? And again, that's a big theme in this book. By the way, I'm not saying that Adele wrote an album about this book, but I think that it's clearly had a big impact on her sense of self, and also the fact that she actively promoted this book. I think it was probably a bit of a teaser into what we could have expected from her music. However, the book. I have thoughts. I have several thoughts. Firstly, one thing I will never stop finding irritating is when people pretend that their kids have really profound thoughts just completely off the cuff. It happens a lot on Twitter when people will be like, my 2-year-old just turned to me and he's like, the bourgeoisie has torn away from the family its sentimental veil and has reduced the family relation to a mere money relation. And they're like, isn't my kid so clever? He just quoted Marx. Like, no, because they probably didn't actually say that. Glennon's kids, apparently, will just be sitting in the back of the car and articulate the most profound philosophical observation and thesis-worthy ideas, and then Glennon will just have a rebuttal, which is, you know, just as eloquent. And honestly, it sounds like hell being in this family, because you go to buy your Rice Krispies and suddenly it's a life lesson about how everything in life snap, crackles, and pops. Do these people ever just talk normally? And like, look, I know it's for the book, but it loses the rawness and authenticity of real conversations when you polish them quite as much as Glennon has in this book. Like, not every conversation we have, everyone says the perfect, completely right thing. And so phrasing things as conversations, I think, is just silly, really. It's like in Riverdale where, like, mid-conversation, a character will come up with all of these feminist buzzwords, like step aside penis donning upholders of the patriarchy, it's my turn to talk now. People don't really talk like that in my world. Apparently they do in Riverdale and in Glennon Doyle's world. The other thing I thought is that this is all about putting yourself first, but Glennon takes this to the extreme, because I think there's self-love and then there's being a bit of a dickhead. At one point she says, recently my friend Erica called my cell phone. I will never understand why people insist upon calling my cell phone. It's such an aggressive action to take, calling someone. Each time my phone rings, I have a heart attack like my pocket's on fire and a tiny siren is going off. And I just think, poor Erica. Erica, I hope you unfollowed, unfriended, and blocked Glennon Doyle after that. What a hideous thing to say about someone, and also a bit embarrassing. I don't know, after I read that bit, I started to lose my touch with the author a little bit. After that, there are really interesting sections about raising a son as a feminist, and how the fight for gender equality actually benefits men as well, because they're often told that being sentimental or open with your feelings is feminine, and therefore they get bottled up, and that's why we have such a huge mental health crisis. And even though this book covers a lot of ground, it's relatively easy to read because Glennon is a good writer. And I think the biggest issue this will face is that it will be deemed elitist or privileged. You know, I'm sure people will say, how fortunate you are that the only problem in your life is your divorce. But everything is relative, right? I worry that book criticism and criticism in general is moving to a point where you can literally just dismiss absolutely anything by being like, that's privileged, you have privilege. And yes, context is so important. Recognizing privilege is incredibly important, but I feel like it's become such a buzzword that people now say, that's privileged, and then just mic drop. And that's it, we have to dismiss this thing. But just because someone has more privilege than someone else, it doesn't mean that what they've created is worthless. Just because other people have bigger, objectively more important issues. A lot of people will find huge amounts of comfort in this book, and that's important. And it makes it worth writing. Sometimes you need to read a book written by someone like you. I'm here all week, guys. So I guess this is a bit of a mixed review from me, because I liked aspects of this book, but also I found the attitude of being entirely self-serving a little bit much. I don't know, I think with self-help books, you always have to sort of take them with a pinch of salt. And usually if you apply every single theory that a self-help book gives you, it might turn you into a bit of a dickhead. So just be careful, approach with caution. I'm now gonna go and find a small hole to sit in and listen to Be Loved by Adele on loop. I mean, there's only 2 weeks until Spotify Wrapped comes out, and Adele said, challenge accepted. I will be number 1 on your list. So, huge shout out to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. I really, really appreciate your support. If you liked this video, you can give it a like if you like, and you can subscribe for more from me if you're feeling generous. All the best, stay in touch, don't forget me, I beg, and I wish nothing but the best for you too. Anyway, bye, see you next time.